Hey, it's Dr. Rowe here. Hope you're all well. I'm on site. I just wanted to share something with you. Whenever you're doing any building works at all, any sorts of renovation, there's different levels of it. You know, you've got your basic cosmetic renovation right through to everything to foundations coming off the ground. Somewhere in between that would be a renovation where you're going into a property and you're gutting it out, and it might be everything from new central heating system, new damp courses, new windows going in, you're going right back to brick, or building off the existing brick and coming out. For example, here's an example of the garage. It's been converted here, so you can see the openings for the windows that are going on. And this is a lesson that I just want to share with everybody to be aware of. And when I started out in property, there were certain things I assumed were being communicated between me, the builder and his team, or the builder and the other specialists that come in. So on this particular project, we've got everything from people dealing with damp right through to the window specialists, through to the plumbers, and all the various people in between. So here's an example. There's a funny story on this one actually, but here's an example where we've got a whole new set of windows coming in here, and this was originally the opening for the garage. I don't know if you can see the two main openings for the garage now they've been removed, and there's been wooden battens, and you've got all the stud work going in here. They're basically creating 1, 2, 3, 4. If I spin it around, you might be able to see it actually. So if I can, it's probably easier. There you go. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 openings for windows, and this will ultimately become like a gym garage. So convert it from a garage into a space for recreational use. And we're going, in this particular case, with some Scandinavian style windows, and there's certain things to be aware of. So one of the things, whenever the window fitter's coming out, if your builder's not on site or somebody to communicate with them, they will need to know certain things like, for example, is there rendering going in on the outside of this? If there's rendering going in, the positioning of the window is really important. Now, this is a detail you might think, well, is it relevant to me? It is actually, because if they get it wrong, the positioning of that window then will affect, for example, sills. If you don't have a sill on a window, what can happen is, or it's the wrong size sill, water can actually find its way back underneath the window and then find its way back in here. So the depth of the rendering is really important, because that affects then, when you do a final sill survey, what actually is going to happen in terms of the length of that sill. So when the rain comes down, it can actually disappear off and move off the building. But equally, when I came here this morning, he was asking me the question, the main builder wasn't around, and then he arrived. But it was, okay, what's happening on the inside? Are you having plastering? What's your plan? Yes, we are. Great, because he's going to have to move the frame slightly in. He's going to have to tie the frame to the inside of here. We're then going to have, obviously, a final finish here which will cover all that, so that's important. Equally here, get these dimensions correct. We had a situation on this project where, quite frankly, there was a miscommunication from the original supplier of the window to the builder, and then through that got across to the main fitter. And to give you an idea, across a window span like this on another part of the building, we ended up 30 millimeters too narrow. Now, there are ways to get around that, but the problem is, with this particular style of window, it needed to have an 11 mil gap either side of the main window. And the reason for that is because of the way the venting system works and how it's sealed and how it's located. If you don't communicate that, if that information is not communicated correctly to you or to your builder, and you haven't double checked that with, for example, the window fitter, they arrive on site and all of a sudden they go, hold on a minute here, we've got a door, 2 windows either side, the last window we can't fit because the dimensions are wrong. Then what happens is, in this case, it was a wooden frame set up, so they have to change what's called the goalpost. But if it was brick, as in there, it might be that you have to pull the brick back and have to cut down through that particular area and actually open it up. And it may not sound like a lot, but it might set your project back a day and a half, 2 days, depending on how many occurrences of this there are. That then puts another cost on you. And then where do you chase that cost back up to? Do you go back to the original fitter and say, well, you should have communicated to us? Do you go back to the original supplier and say, but you gave these dimensions to our builder, he's built to that, but you forgot to tell us about this particular additional width that needs to be put in place? These may not seem like big things, but on a project that's a large scale, if they start to add up, before you know it, if you've got 5-10 days of delays, at whatever rate it is for the various people on site, that could cost you thousands of pounds. We were quite fortunate here because there was a relatively quick fix and they were able to deal with it on the Monday, and the chap's been back and he's already fitting the new elements to the window. So my point is this: anything like this that looks really obvious, don't assume anything. Always double communicate with the builder, make sure you've got the openings right, check back with the window fitters, make sure you've allowed for the sill. In this case, we're going to do a sill survey a little bit later on for every single window, and there's a lot of them here. It'll take, probably because of the nature of these windows, about a week to 2 weeks to have them built and brought in. And if you look down the bottom here, whenever you don't have sills on the bottom of your double glazed windows, and the rain can traffic back through, this is where you've got your water course as well. This is obviously a damp course for what's going to happen inside the garage later on. That's where you'll see your water come back through as well. A little bit of a funny story on this one, just to finish off. What we've got in this particular situation is a ride-on lawnmower. Now, that ride-on lawnmower was originally here in the garage, and when the chippies came out and all this was ripped out about a week ago, they were very enthusiastic. A lot of the stuff in the garage here was covered over with wood, with old tabletops, with some bits and bobs. Nothing of any great value, except there was obviously a lawnmower in here. They didn't spot that. They put these up, and of course the doors in. Where'd you get the lawnmower? Out of the garage. And unfortunately, they realized, oh my God, it's locked in. So that meant coming back in, basically removing this and then taking the lawnmower out. So planning is really important. You probably heard the phrase piss poor planning leads to, piss poor preparation leads to a piss poor project. So just be mindful of these things. And of course, now the lawnmower gets taken off site for security reasons, so it won't even be here. All right, just a quick tip really there on planning, communication, and make sure everybody is totally in line with what's going on the project. Communication, 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 absolutely essential. I'm going to sign out.